Hey guys, I'm going to show y'all how to make some southern homemade gravy with some biscuits, sausage, and some scrambled eggs. So I've got my sausage in the pan frying, and I've got my canned biscuits in the pan getting ready to put into the oven. Just follow the baking instructions per the can. I don't normally make homemade, made from scratch biscuits. I'm not very good at it, so I just use canned biscuits. It works. Next, I'm going to grab my eggs and show you how that I make what I consider to be very good scrambled eggs. Grab my milk. I put milk in my eggs because it just makes my eggs fluffier. They don't stick to the pan as easy. There's nothing worse than just having eggs that have stuck to the bottom of a pan and taste like flaky paper or something. But anyway, I crack my eggs and put them in my bowl. And I'll add a little bit of salt and pepper later. Once we get, I think I used 4 eggs here. I'm going to put a little bit of milk in there. You don't want to put a whole lot of milk, just I always eyeball it. So just pour a little in there and then add some salt, some pepper, and get ready to stir them to mix them good with the milk. And I use a fork to do this. You can use a whisk if you want to. Doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to come over and turn my stove on. I'm using gas stove, so it cooks pretty evenly, and put it on about low to medium. And I'm going to grab some oil. I use extra virgin olive oil. Put just a little bit in the pan before I get ready to scramble my eggs. And this is the flour that I get. I get it from a local produce market. It comes from a mill, I think, in North Carolina. And you use self-rising flour to make your gravy. But first I want to scramble my eggs. I'm going to pour them in my skillet that's been heated. I'm going to use my spatula. Any spatula will do. I'm using a Pioneer Woman spatula. This helps to keep your eggs from sticking really bad to the skillet in addition to the milk that we've added. So I just kind of scrape around the sides and scoop my egg mixture around and just keep stirring them almost constantly. There's my sausage that I've got cooking. So while my sausage cooks, I'm over here scrambling my eggs. Doesn't take very long to make scrambled eggs. Don't let them cook too long or you might burn them. So as you can see, I'm just scooting them around, scraping the sides, making sure I'm getting all of my mixture off of the pan. And I use a nonstick pan. That also helps with sticking. And you'll sometimes let them just sit for a few seconds and cook, and then you'll flip them over, stir them up, mix them again. So delicious. Some people add salt and pepper after they cook their eggs. I always add it with my mixture, but if you want to put extra after you finish cooking them, that's fine too. So we're almost done with the scrambled eggs. I'm going to turn my stove off and move them to the back eye and let them sit there just a second. And I have washed my pan here already, and I'm going to put some oil into my pan to make our southern homemade gravy. I'm using the same extra virgin olive oil. And depending on how many people you're making gravy for, That's how much oil you want to put in there. I usually just eyeball it. I put maybe, I don't know, a few tablespoons. Then I'm going to add my self-rising flour mixture. Start to mix that up. And I don't want my consistency to be too runny like water. So I'm going to stir this up and let it cook. And you can mash down any of those little flour lumps that are in there. I don't like to leave those. So I'll get some extra flour and add to this to make it a little thicker consistency. And again, I just eyeball it. I don't have any certain measurements. After you've cooked gravy a few times, you pretty much learn how to do it automatically, and you don't have to measure anything. So you almost constantly stir your gravy mixture. You don't want to put the heat too high, so I'm thinking I might have put it on maybe medium, and then when I get closer to getting it a little thicker, I might turn it up. I don't always do that, but sometimes I do. And I'm going to add a little salt and a little pepper, and I do this as I'm cooking my gravy mixture before we get ready to add in the milk. And if I've seen that I've not gotten it thick enough, I'll go back and add in some more flour.
You want some biscuits and
Maddie's
gravy?
really hungry. This is my grandbaby. Had to stop for a minute. I didn't want her to get too close to the hot stove. But you're going to stir. You can see that the gravy is starting to thicken. Like a thicker batter, I guess you would call it. It's not watery like it was in the beginning. So just keep stirring that constantly. You can sometimes stop for just a little bit and let it cook, but don't let it cook too long without stirring. You want to keep it stirred. My husband always says, brown the gravy until it's almost smoking. That's how he does his. But I don't always do that. I brown it until it's really, really brown. It looks like it might burn, but it's not going to burn, trust me. I learned to make gravy from his mother, and she would always get her mixture just smoking hot. It would literally smoke, and it was still the best gravy ever. But I don't always do that. Then I'm going to pour in my milk. Depending on how much flour I put in there, I'm cooking for 3 people and the dog. He'll get a little bit too, so I'm going to pour my milk into maybe a third of the way up to the top of my skillet, not all the way up. And then you want to make sure you stir this mixture almost constantly as well, mixing in the milk with your flour and oil mixture. And you're gonna let this thicken. It takes a little bit of time, but towards the end you can, as I said earlier, turn up the heat. But you have to be really careful and watch it if you do that, because it'll burn. You don't want it to burn or scorch. So you're just gonna constantly stir that milk, flour, oil mixture until it starts to thicken. Now my biscuits are ready, so I'm going to go ahead and take those out. They're getting brown on the tops, brown on the bottoms. I checked earlier. And I'm just going to set those aside until I finish cooking my gravy. And again, you're going to cook. As you can see, it's not as thick as I'd like it just yet. So I'm going to keep stirring it just a little bit longer. But you can tell it's starting to thicken a little bit. And keep in mind, you don't want it to get too thick. So you want it to still have a watery consistency before you remove it from your pan, but at the same time, you have to be careful. So I went ahead and turned my stove eye off, and then I'm going to move it back because I've got it as thick as I want it. And as you can see there, just by looking at that, and it will also thicken as it sits there. So keep that in mind. You don't have to keep it on the stove a long time. There we go. Homemade gravy, scrambled eggs, sausage, and biscuits. Now I'm going to get my plate, put me some biscuits on there. I'm going to use a spoon scoop, scoop out some gravy over the tops of my biscuits. Gonna get me some sausage and some scrambled eggs and add to my plate. Look at those nice, fluffy, pretty eggs. They're not scorched, they're not brown. And there's the finished product. And this is Maddie's portion. So now let's see what Maddie thinks about the gravy. Looks like she approves.